Hey guys, welcome to Little Black Bert 91. Listen, we're giving you a part 2 of the conversation between Clay and Celina Powell. And I said, listen, Clay needs Celina Powell. You know what? He needs a Celina Powell. He needs this lesson. You see, sometimes you can't learn a lesson until the lesson presents itself to you and teaches you what you should have learned before. Okay, I don't know if that makes sense. But anyway, listen, sometimes you meet somebody and they are your lesson, right? And it's really interesting with Clay. I did in part 1, and I spoke about the reason why I believe Clay is there. If you're somebody who's been in a situation where you ever felt like sex is the predominant language that you use to be able to communicate how you actually feel and what you actually need. If you've used sex as a way of connecting with a human being, another person, if you've used sex as a way of a glue to bind your relationship together, if you use sex as a way of a vehicle of avoiding the pain and the traumas that you've actually experienced, when you use sex in the incorrect fashion and form, you find yourself in places like this, in dry, arid places where the bones are dry and the valley is dry and the systems are broken, okay? And you find yourself in places with women and men, if you're a woman, where you shouldn't be, right? And sex, because sex is the language, predominant language of conversation, you and that person actually are in the same place. You see, at the Tower of Babel in the Bible, Genesis, they had one language and they built a tower up to they were about building it up to the heavens. But at that point, God then gave them all different languages and confused them, and they stopped building Babel. What am I telling you? That when people have a common language called sex, they find themselves in places that they shouldn't be together. They are a mirror to each other, and maybe Clay needs to see what mirror he's looking at and look at himself properly. Because people that are emotionally wounded, their predominant language is usually sex. Because they often find themselves voiceless, and they often find themselves in a place where they can't process their emotions and they don't understand their emotions. And because they can't express their emotions, they usually express it in a behavior. Some do it in anger, frustration, but some of us do it in sex. And I'll tell you this now, I'm not here to bust down Clay. Pause, no diddy. But I am here to have a real conversation because I spent time in that place. I've spent time in the place where sex became my language. And I used it as a form of communication to gain access to gathering emotional energy from that person. Friends with benefits. We're just going to be a situation shit, whatever you want to call it. It's been a predominant language I've used and understood for a very long time. How I use my body, how I use my words, how I go about even choosing a mate. I looked at my ex situations. I was like, all of them involved sex, and it was so early on. And the reason being is because I didn't know how to connect emotionally. And this is where Clay is at, and maybe this is where you're at. And this is why this video is for you. Sex should not be your predominant language. It is a part of a relationship, and yes, it makes a great relationship, but it should not be the predominant language that you lead with. Okay, we're going to go deep today, I promise you. We're going to go deep. So make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, click on that bell button for notification of uploads. We appreciate you guys who have joined us today. Let's get deeper. Look, sometimes God will give you a situation to make you learn from the previous times that you've been in a situation. He might allow you to walk through that door several times. But the reality of the situation with Clay here is that he suffers like a lot of men do, right? Sex becomes real easy to chase when you want to feel something. See, when you're emotionally disturbed and emotionally detached, let me say that, disturbed is the wrong word, emotionally detached, right, where you can't connect, you don't know how to be a safe place, you don't know how to be a place of non-judgment, you don't care about the little details when it comes to relationships or the other party, you don't know how to be sympathetic of other people's experiences, you don't know how to be a partnership in a relationship, you don't know how to make people feel seen or heard, you're not always interested in people's hobbies, you're really more concerned about yourself and your actual feelings, right? You don't know how to be open and vulnerable with your thoughts and your feelings, then you are in a place where you don't know how to emotionally connect. And the first connection is with self. What do you want? What do you need? That's actually one of the biggest signs for anybody that they're emotionally disconnected. What do you want and what do you need? And a lot of people can't voice that and can't express it because they're not emotionally connected. I myself am doing some work on myself to be even emotionally connected, because at times I will go through a situation and I will rationalize and I will intellectualize the situation, and you will hear it because I don't put any emotion into how I'm explaining the event. Oh, that person slapped me. Yeah, listen, I can understand why he slapped me, but let me tell you this now, I'm gonna slap him back, because ain't nobody gonna. and I won't put any emotion. And when I say emotion, not that I won't display any, but I won't put any emotion into my explanation, because I'm intellectualizing and I'm rationalizing, because the emotional language required in order to do that also needs me to permit myself to express myself in that particular way. But if from childhood your voice has been quenched, you have been emotionally neglected, you have been told without being told through the behaviors of your parents or whoever was your guardian, whether they abandoned you, whether they left you, maybe they weren't as emotionally present as they needed to be. You had clothes on your back, you had food on your table, but they weren't emotionally present. You couldn't share your feelings with them. Then guess what happens? You go mute. And then you grow up with that wound. And then sex usually becomes your distinctive calling card and your distinctive voice and your distinctive language that you use to speak. And then someone like Clay right now, looking at Celina, he needs Celina because she speaks the same language he does. And he was trying to speak the same language to AD. And at some points, AD was speaking the same language. She was using her body, okay, being way too invested in her body, too excited about how banging her body was, and forgot that she needs to emotionally connect. They were a mirror of each other. And so now we got Clay with Celina Powell, somebody who's all the way sexual. He gonna find out that that's not what he really wants. That you actually want to be emotionally connected. That you actually want a connection with a party, a person who cares about you, who makes you feel something beyond just sex. Okay, this is a pattern of behavior for Clay, right? And I just showed you that video. That video there was of another woman. It's not Celina. That was another woman. What's her name? Wendy or whatever. Another adult porn star, whatever, right? And so you can imagine he is happy to play amongst those women, right? He's happy to. Right? And it's because, again, once more, the inability to emotionally connect with self provides solution in sex, okay? And men having multiple sexual partners exhibits conquering for a lot of men because we don't conquer anything else, or we're lacking conquering in other areas, so we conquer women. And because we yearn for power, and part of that power is having a harem of women to choose from. Part of that power is the ability that many women worship you and want you. It's idolatry, right? And that's why when you see in cults and idolatry that you see group sex, and you see people using sex as magic, and you see that even God himself in the Bible describes when we worship other idols as being adulterous, and us also being fornicators, or should say committing adultery, okay, with another god. But you see, worship becomes this form of sex and intimacy. And so a lot of times we are idolatrous in the way that we move, in the way that we connect in relationships. And that's where Clay is with Celina right now. Shaming him won't work. See, when you can't connect with yourself, you'll connect with others. When your lights are turned off, you choose other people whose lights are turned off. You don't want somebody whose lights are turned on. You don't want somebody who's emotionally connected, because that will shine light on your darkness. The Bible says that people don't want to come to God because they are doing their deeds in the darkness. And when you lift up that, when the light shine upon them, they got two choices: either go towards the light and put away their deeds, or they go further into the darkness, because really and truly what they really want is not their deeds to be exposed. That's where I was for 3 years. I didn't want my deeds to be exposed. I was very quiet about it. I was very low key about it, to some degree. I'll do my thing here and there. You know what I'm saying to you? I don't like talking about what I do. It's not my kind of thing, right? And so, but when people will talk about maybe what I'm doing or saying, hey, wait, I'm like, I don't want to hear it. I'm in my own space. You can't tell me nothing, right? And that's the whole point. You can't tell someone nothing, because when you're in that space, you can't tell them nothing because they've got an independent spirit. And that independent spirit won't let them yield to anybody else but themselves. Clay's mum can say something. We're going to do part 3. Clay's mum actually spoke about it. You can say whatever you want to say and still he won't listen. The problem is there's a broken perspective that's coming from a broken experience. An experience of being emotionally neglected leads to a broken perspective, because we've got experience, we've got belief, we've got attitude, and we've got perception. And the broken perception that leads you to choose somebody who you shouldn't choose is because the experience is broken. Now, of course, your experience is your experience, but when you have a broken experience where love is not shone upon you in a healthy way, then your perception is also unhealthy in how you choose. And this is why we have to get closer to God, because he's conforming us to the image of the Son. This is why he tells us what love is, so that we can begin to act it out. And so that we can have a mirror against acts that are not loving. And it's not loving to himself, Clay, to do this. Right? See, the devil is on God's payroll, you know. The Bible tells me in James 1, and even not in James 1, Job. I always find it interesting. I had a conversation with my friend Max, and we had a really detailed conversation about this, that we just couldn't understand the fullness of Satan being able to talk to the Lord, and the Lord making a bet on Job. Now, we can discuss the theology behind that another time, but the reality of the situation is, God was like, listen, Satan, go ahead and do what you got to do. See, God can allow Satan to do what he needs to do. Because in the end, if he knows your end and he knows your beginning, he's got plans to prosper you. You understand what I'm saying to you? Right? He makes all things good in his time. And so Satan comes to tempt, but God will allow a test. See, Eve was in the garden with Adam, and Adam was actually right next to Eve when Satan came. And that was the test. But the test was also a temptation from Satan. But the Bible says that we are tempted by what's in ourselves. And so with Clay right now being tested by the temptations that he feels, he's going to be led by those temptations. And see, the Bible talks about in Romans 1 that he gave them over to a reprobate mind. I was in a reprobate mind. I was Nebuchadnezzar in the field for 3 years. I became a beast. A lot of men through emotional wounds become beasts. See, Nebuchadnezzar's issue was that he was prideful. And I'm sure if we went through his history, we'd probably see that the family was probably prideful. It's a pattern of behavior. God will give you over to the sin that you want to chew upon. Just like he gave Israel over to the fact that he wanted more quail, more food, more meat. He said, listen, I'm going to give you as much meat as you can eat. And eventually he got sick of it. See, sometimes you need to go and eat that thing consistently to get sick of it. See, I got sick of me being sexual for 3 years, so much so that nothing else really mattered. I got sick of it. And eventually it catches up with you. Stupid situations, people, heartbreaks, all that kind of stuff. Yeah? It catches up with you. I can see with Clay where he's at right now. He's enjoying himself. Yeah? And the Lord will give you over to a reprobate mind. He'll give you over to a mind where it's just seared. You only want to do what you want to do. Right? You're Nebuchadnezzar, the beast in the field. And you move like a beast. Right? You're not moving like a man. You're moving like a beast. Everything that you want, you desire, you go and collect. Right? But there's a time that's coming where you'll wake up from that. Whether it's too late, whether it's too early, you don't know. Only the Lord knows when he'll wake up. Okay? But the pattern is destructive. Okay? Now, with this situation, the reality is he can't trust himself. Okay? All right? And he's enjoying the fact that she has low standards. Because when people are in the field, do you want to be honest with you? All of us who were in the field, sexing about like there's no tomorrow, are emotionally broken. All of us who are being promiscuous in the field, sexing how we wanted to sex, are emotionally broken. That's why we're there. Right? That's why we're there. We were seeking for pleasure, but the reality of the situation is if you trace people's background, you'll realize there's emotional neglect. The parent has not been present. The parent hasn't been loving. There's been some issue with family, whatever. Something has been violated, broken from early. And that's what sent them to make that normalize, that sex is normalized, that promiscuity is normalized. I know. I'm not going to lie to you. So if Clay is there, it's because there's a brokenness. And Celina is his mirror. She's also there because of her brokenness. Now, I think for him, it can be a clout chase too. And he winning. Because in reality, Antonio Brown, academics, much larger names than he is, but now his name will be added. If they didn't know who he was, they will now. If they didn't know who he was before, they will now. Only because of this particular situation. You get what I'm saying to you? So I'm looking at the Clay situation and going, listen, if you're in this place, I don't want you to ignore what's happening to you. Okay, this video has come across you because you needed to change. Something needed to give. Something needed to be renewed in you. Okay, something speaks to you about sex, and it's because you are seeking for answers and solutions to the pain that you actually feel that you're not acknowledging within yourself. There's a pain that you're not acknowledging, and that's what's making you promiscuous. I was there. I'm telling you. Something is missing for you. It's not connecting all the dots. And so sex is your method of transportation of the solution that you require to able to get that feeling of peace or some form of peace, which doesn't last long. It lasts as long as the session that you're willing to play with and as many people that you're willing to play with. Let me know your thoughts down below. But listen, hey, we're doing some great coaching at the moment. Listen, I would love for you guys to reach out to me. Sign up through, the description box. There's a link there. We are looking to help people, tap into why they do what they do now and tap into their past. So if you're somebody who's going through something right now, we solve that issue by dealing with the root. I don't want to deal with the branches. I don't want to deal with the fruits. I want to deal with the roots. Where's that coming from? Where did that start from? It starts from experience. If we can tap into the experiences and begin to speak to the lies that came out of that experience, we can begin to change things. Okay, so make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, click on that bell button for notification of uploads. We appreciate you guys. Stay locked, stay loaded. We'll see you again.